Bill 253 initiates an amendment to Article 3, Section 3-6 of the Hawaii County Charter 2012 edition relating to the term of appointment for the County Clerk. Establishes a 6-year term for the County Clerk. Reference Communication 876, introduced by Mr. Yoshimoto. First reading, June 4th, 2014. Second reading, June 18, 2014. Note: third of 3 required readings, a 2/3 vote of the entire membership is required to pass each reading pursuant to Section 15-1A of the Hawaii County Charter.
Let the record reflect I'm going to relinquish the chair to our Vice Chair, Ms. Yoff.
Okay, I have the chair. We do need...
Madam Chair, may I move to approve Bill 253 on second, excuse me, this must be the third reading.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Yoshimoto and seconded by Mr. Kanuha to approve Bill 253. Mr. Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I go into discussion, I would defer to Ms. Willie because I believe she has a pending amendment. Then I'd like to go after she makes her amendment.
Okay, Ms. Willie.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to move to amend Bill 253 with the contents of Communication 876.3.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Willie and second by Mr. Onishi. Go ahead, Ms. Willie.
Okay. Thinking about all the discussion that we had at the last meeting, I was one of the votes that was against, voted nay, and but trying to sort of come to some kind of more compromise and address some of the concerns that at least I had, and I think several others did, and this would be the length, extending the length of the term for the county clerk. Right now it's at 2 years. The original bill would have it moved to 6 years, and so my amendment would go with 4 years. And I also changed it so that the council, by majority vote, could remove the clerk, and the way the original bill had it, it was the council by a 2/3 majority could remove the clerk at any time for cause. So in that regard, just as a lawyer, anything where it's for cause to me is like nigh impossible, and what would usually happen is then if the person disputed it, then you end up, as far as I'm concerned, getting a settlement and paying much of what their salary would be anyway. And so just thinking in terms of some of those risks. But really more importantly, I feel the clerk works for all of us as a council, and that none of us really want to get rid of our clerk and it just makes it, you're here and we want you, you're here at the behest of the council as a whole. So anyway, that was the direction I was trying to take, and I think it may be in the future, let's go to 6 years, but I was having difficulty jumping right from 2 to 6, and if we feel good about it, maybe then the next time or whoever is here would change it to 6 years. Now, if I had a guaranteed contract from Stewart, I might not be worrying about this, but I don't, and it's just that off chance that the way we tend to do it, there are new people coming in here. Who knows who's going to be chair, what their persuasion is. They could be here for 2 years and have appointed a, Mr. Dracula, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just trying to minimize the risks. I'm just, trying to weigh out, but trying to honor the sentiments and the concerns that both Chair Yoshimoto and Ms. Ford had. So I'm just throwing this up for discussion. I didn't want to come in here and just say, I don't like what you're doing, I'm going to vote against you, but trying to do, how can we weigh out the different legitimate interests. Okay, I yield.
Okay, Mr. Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Miss Willie, I I like your amendment. Let me tell you the reasons why. We've had a good amount of time looking at this issue, and I've listened intently to all the different concerns. I'll kind of say this in more of a, well, allow me some latitude, I guess, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
The intent, we always want to make things better, right? And sometimes, of course, when we try and do that, we look to the obvious extremes. And I realize that as the bill is currently written, it is taking a leap of faith in terms of putting the faith of the clerk position, first, of course, to the voters who has to decide whether they approve it or not, but secondly, to each appointing council for every 6 years. Recognizing that, no one's perfect, and sometimes, people can change for whatever reasons. I think the council should have the ability to remove a person it feels is not appropriate at that time. So I think as currently written, the bill, which I authored, is rigid in the sense that we're hoping for someone super qualified, committed to the job, and free from politics. The reality of the situation is that might be a little bit too idealistic. And so putting it at 4 years, Ms. Willie, I think is maybe a more reasonable bite at the apple, I guess, at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And majority vote, I can live with that too. I can live with that. And then the for cause position, the for cause language, it was meant to protect the clerk, but at the same time, having sat here for almost 8 years and thinking about this a lot, I'd rather err on the side of caution. And so I think it should be incumbent upon the council as a legislative body to have that ability, which without impediments, that would make it really difficult. Because I think as far as the people are concerned, that the council speaks for the people, and that's why I think that the council should have that discretion to make changes should it feel necessary. But I do like the 4 years, because even though you can change the clerk at any time, arguably, right, at any time, it just gives you a framework or to say that, okay, well, we're appointing you for 4 years so that the next council, because we're elected every 2 years, would have it in their mind that, this is the person that, right, and you'd have to have, well, hopefully more than just a silly reason to remove them if you wanted to stop or remove them after 2 years or at any time. So I like it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure who put their light on first, but
I think. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Iliga.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supporting your amendment, Councilmember Willie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, and I'd like to say thank you for coming to that compromise. And thank you to Mr. Onishi, too, because I know you were pushing for the 4 years, so this works out. And I like the compromise, and I like what you said, so, about the reasoning for taking out the for cause. And that's important. So I agree, and I am supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Poindexter. And Mr. Kanuha?
Thank you. I absolutely love this amendment. It was something that we've been talking about the whole time, even from the very beginning. So I think with what everybody said, I think you really did put it all, I mean, not all of it, but a good majority of what has been said inside this amendment. And I agree with everything that Mr. Yoshimoto said about this, so I fully support this.
Okay,
I have to go back to what the original proposal for this amendment was supposed to do, and that was to pull the clerk out of the political realm and allow the clerk to not only learn the person's job, but to be able to handle elections as the official elections officer of the County of Hawaii. And 4 years will help with that. There's no doubt about that. 6 years would help too. Of course, there are no qualifications, so you can wind up with anybody. But when I look at this, you can take them out at any time for any reason whatsoever. Now you've got it back in the political realm again. And you look at dropping it from 2/3 to just a straight majority, you're back in the political realm again. So when I look at this, while 4 years is a good compromise, the other things that I look at, what's missing and what's there, you could have a change every single year, which would defeat the whole purpose of having a clerk who's trained and knows how to handle not only the job, but elections that are coming up. I don't see this particular amendment as any more attractive, except, well, hardly more attractive than the 2-year terms we have now, which I don't like. Jay is completely correct in his analysis of that. We've watched it happen. But the fact that a clerk can be removed at any time for any reason at all puts the clerk at a tremendous disadvantage with whatever the council majority is. All the clerk has to do is annoy the council majority, a simple majority, and that clerk is gone. And we are back to a brand-new clerk who does not know what is going on and can't handle an election. I cannot support this.
Ms. Willie?
No, Margaret and then...
Okay, Ms. Willie?
I just want to respond to that because I appreciate what Ms. Ford said. I mean, I really thought about it and how this would work. And I think that if it was sort of a more political position, I would lean in her direction. But I think the clerk, ultimately, I see as a human relations person. And I like having them sort of be, here it is, they're more responsible to all of the council members rather than just the chair, which I think the reality is that they're there to pull us together. And I just think the reality is that I'm not so fearful of the risks that Ms. Ford's bringing up. And I like the clerk really being a human relations person, and I think that this really focuses in on that. I think, Stuart's been an exemplary person in that regard, but and I think it helps to keep that position that way, where you're really, like sometimes we say, well, Stuart heard the cats, it's, so I appreciate what you're saying, Ms. Ford, and I think, I guess I just don't share that worry. I mean, think of it with all of us. I mean, unless we're all, dodo birds and, go off, people do elect us and put some trust in us. Now, Councilmember Ilgan's laughing, but I'll accept that. But anyway, it's all of us, and we do speak for the people. And I think having disarray and getting rid of people and that doesn't bode well and doesn't go well with for all of us either. I think that we have an incentive to work as more on a family level and not have that person where I feel it can be just chair and the clerk. Anyway, that's how I feel, and that's how I'm going to stand.
Thank you. Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, I'd just like to ditto what Margaret said, especially the part where we're elected by the people. So I'm trusting the people to make the right decisions in their own district to elect who they want to have represent them and the decisions made here. So I trust that the council, whether it be a majority or whatever, is representing their community, their people, and we have approximately, 19,000 each in each of our districts. So I trust the people, and I also wanted to say, I thanked Margaret and for bringing this forward, and along with Councilmember Onishi, but I especially want to thank our council chair, Yoshimoto, for even bringing this up. Thank you so much for this discussion and opportunity to serve our people a lot better. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was trying to look at it further on the grounds of what Ms. Ford said earlier, and I kind of might have she might have a concern there that is pretty valid on the fact that it might be going back to the same, how it was previously, as in that the majority can remove the the clerk at any time. And looking back at what the language says, you know, the clerk shall be appointed for 4 years, but, you know, in the next 2 years, the majority can say, we want a new clerk. So it's almost kind of goes back to the original language of the bill without this charter amendment. And I just want to be clear that I'm stating that correctly, and make sure that I'm looking at this correctly. The county clerk shall serve for a period of 4 years and thereafter until a successor is appointed. The council, by a majority vote of its membership, may remove the clerk from office at any time. So I hope I stated that correctly. At any time can the majority remove the clerk. That almost, like, that to me, that almost doesn't make any sense why we're even proposing this amendment. Okay. May I ask Mr. Yoshimoto if that was correct?
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Chair.
Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, Mr. Kuno, you are correct. And basically what it does is just changes the 2-year to a 4-year term, right? And like I said, I think when I was talking about it, that any council at any time can make a change, whether it's in the first year, second year, third year, or fourth year. But you start with the framework that it's a 4-year term for the clerk. So I was, again, now this is kind of a leap of faith, but hoping that if there's any changes, and if there's a valid reason for it other than being politics. You know, at the same time, you know, we need to look at that. We're human beings, and sometimes we may think we made the right choice, but later on we might need to change. So that's where I'm thinking to be more cautious, to allow the discretion of the council, because the council should know best as far as how the clerk is performing or not performing. The problem with 2/3 vote, well, 6 votes is, you know, I think it's always a tougher hurdle to leap over. So you are correct that it's not really a big change now. If this amendment passes, it'll be just basically saying it's a 4-year term, but, you know, we can still make the change at any time. So that may, I mean, you have a valid point.
Do I still have the floor?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. I appreciate what you said, Mr. Yoshimoto. And, you know, with what you said, you know, I agree. Like in the beginning, I was hesitant to go with the 6 years. I like the 4 years. You know, with this one, I might want to keep the 2/3 majority instead of the majority vote. You know, so that we can have that consistency for the 4 years. It'll be a little bit more difficult for just a plain majority to get rid of the clerk for any reason necessary. These are just my concerns I have, and I just want to hear what everybody else has to say.
Okay. Mr. Onishi.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really like this. And to me, you know, it was mentioned like a new clerk might come in without experience. How can we say that the new council going to bring in someone without experience? They might bring in a clerk that was, you know, 5 years ago or 8 years ago or something. So they would have that experience in the process of the office. The 4 cause, as what Ms. Willie mentioned, if any council goes through that 4 cause, and like she said, in litigation, guarantee somebody going to have to pay up. And most of the county going to have to pay, like she mentioned, about their salaries and so forth, what was supposed to be compensated to them. To me, how it's now, I mean, if you do really want to, like a new council wants to really get rid of the clerk that's in there like already 2 years, and now he's going to go, that person's going to go for the next 2 years, I mean, they would still need to give one good reason. I mean, because they're going to be in a political arena, and so they're going to have to explain to the public of why they want to eliminate that person. And so they cannot just say, oh, because I don't like the way that person looks, so that's what we're going to eliminate. They're going to have to give grounds, because if they don't have good grounds to get to release that person, can you imagine the public, the feedback that they're going to get from the public? So to me, this is what Ms. Willie's saying, to help protect the county too, because if you go 4 cause, it's like basically you eliminate, you cannot even get them out. Okay, because you're going to have really, 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 really good grounds to get to kind of at least protect yourself by releasing that person. So I think this gives the latitude to the council for the future councils to decide. But like I said, if that person is good and was doing a great job and they have a good rapport with all the staff, whatever council comes in or the chair that comes in, I think would kind of think, like maybe I should keep them, because then that's going to keep the morale going, right? Because then now, if they eliminate that person, then morale could go either up or down, right? And so, I really want to support this, and I hope everybody can support Ms. Willie's amendment. Thank you.
I'm going to afford latitude here because this is our last chance to discuss this, and it would become a charter amendment on the ballot. Okay, Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah. I did speak once.
Yes, this is your
said-
second,
Okay, well, thank you.
but some want to speak again for the third time, so I'm going to allow that too.
Sounds good. Thank you. Those are well-spoken points, Councilmember Onishi. I supported the 6 years. The reason why I supported the 6 years is our late senator's term is 6 years. And one of the things that I feel like having a 2-year term is that you're learning the job. But by the time you learn the job, and as council members, we realize that we really can't work with that clerk. You bring up a good point that we have to still answer to the public if we were to remove that clerk. I feel like that 4-year term that council member really put up, I am okay with 4 or 6, but I know that if it passed the 2-year mark, I'm pretty sure that 6 will be okay, 4 will be okay, probably 8 will be okay. It's that 2-year mark I feel is the hardest mark. It's trying to find out who this person is, and can this person have the people skills to deal with 9 elected officials, public servants. And I feel like that's the hardest part. And I support this. I like the fact that you remove that for a cause, because we still need to answer to the public. And 4 or 6, it doesn't matter to me. I feel like minimum for me would be 4, maximum would probably be 8, and I will be in full support of your amendment.
I'll go to Ms. Willie.
Let me say, when I was working on this, I really weighed the majority and the 2/3, so I totally appreciate what Councilman, and I sort of went like, well, this is one step, and if everybody were voting and voted for the 2/3, I wouldn't be arguing against it. But I don't know, I just have a little more trust in this position, and trust that I want this position to be something that's with us and the council. I wouldn't want that person, drifting off, whether it's the administration or some other special interest or something, or some own personal agenda. And I'm comfortable with this, but I just want to stress that there are pros and cons of both ways, and I have no opposition to, if it was 2/3, but I believe this would be okay. So I ask for your support, but I accept if you want to, if there was enough of the 2/3 is not something I would oppose.
Okay, Mr. Yoshimoto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Kanuha's point about the majority versus 2/3, I think he raises a good point, because in my experience, getting a simple majority is, it's easier, of course, obviously, than a 2/3 vote. So 2/3 vote would be a higher hurdle to climb or leap over. So I think he's. It's
as a friendly amendment.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the council, but I think we would protect the position a little bit better that way, rather than, because the ebb and flow, I mean, But anyway, I don't know if I'm making my point across, but.
Can I move to amend to a two-thirds? I think it's clear enough that we wouldn't have to do it in
I think we can-
writing.
we
We
can-
still are going to need to hear this again, because either way, it's substantive.
Okay, so we can accept a floor amendment if you'd
If
like to
there's
make
a
that
second.
motion.
Second.
Okay. It has been moved by Ms. Willie and seconded by Mr. Onishi to amend Communication 876.3 by, instead of it saying the council by a two-thirds, instead of saying the council by a majority vote, it would be changed to say the council by a two-thirds majority vote. Is that correct, Ms. Willie?
Correct.
Okay, so where two-thirds is stricken, that would instead be language that stays in.
Actually, like, one of, just a clarification, I think it should say two-third vote rather than two-third
Don't need
majority.
majority.
I don't think you want to put majority in there.
Right.
Two-thirds
Yeah,
majority, okay. Then let me state that again. The amended language would read, "The council, by a two-thirds vote of its membership, may remove the county clerk from office at any time," period. Right?
Correct.
Okay, so that is the amendment that's being proposed. And is there any discussion? If none, before we do take a vote, I would just like to comment real quick. So because this has been discussed a lot, and I had a lot of thoughts on it as well, I did do some research and talk to county clerks in the other 3 counties. And, it turns out every county has a little bit different setup between their staff, their clerk, whether or not they have a deputy clerk, if they have an office manager. There's quite a bit of diverse structuring in the different counties. So I don't think there's any really right way. I think there may be some other ideas we could come up with later on after this, after we see whether the voters accept this change, that could stabilize our staff as well. So I'm really comfortable with this now, and I would like to support the amended version of Ms. Willie's amendment. And if no one else wishes to speak, I'll go ahead and ask Mr. Clerk to take a roll call.
I guess I'm not going to be speaking at all today. Don't just ignore me.
Oh, I didn't see your light, Ms. Ford.
No, I've been sitting here like this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've passed 3 times.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm out of it.
No,
Just
no,
keep
I
going,
will.
keep going.
No, I'm
not
sorry.
gonna- No.
Go ahead.
Okay, then this is the vote on the amendment to Communication 876.3.
Ms. Ford?
Honolulu, aye.
Mr. Ligon?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Onishi? Aye. Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Yuff?
Aye.
Chair Yuff, you have 8 ayes on the motion to amend
And one excused.
and 1 excuse, yes.
Okay, so Communication 876.3 is amended.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Ligon?
may I make suspend the rules on the substantial amendment, so we are able to vote on this and pass it through. Could I get a second?
Second?
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Iligan and seconded by Ms. Poindexter, I think it was, to suspend the rules so that we can continue to vote on this communication as amended at this time. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there are 8 ayes and 1 excused. So now we're back to Ms. Willie's communication. Oh, wait, is that right? 876 point.
As amended.
Yeah, as amended. But is there any discussion? Yes, no?
Well, am I going to be allowed to talk today?
Of course. I'm sorry, I totally didn't see your light or anything
Yeah,
before.
thanks. Because most of you have not served as long as some of us, and because there's no, well, I've mentioned this before, I realize it's fallen on deaf ears or it's being ignored. But you're about to make a decision, and this will go to the voters, and I don't know if it's going to pass the vote of the electorate. But when you've been here a while and you wind up in the council majority, and you wind up with a clerk who is vicious, makes up rules and applies them to the minority members of the council, physically gets up and threatens council members during the meetings, will not shut up when they're called out of order, who insist on participating in the debate. When you get a clerk like that, but that clerk is supported by the majority, and you are not in the majority, you are going to be in some very big trouble. Now, I know none of you think this can happen, but there's 3 of us on this council that know it's happened many times. There's 3 of us on this council who also knows the majority on a council can shift very quickly, and the new majority takes over, and then things change dramatically. I know some of you think, or have stated, oh, well, the people, the voters, put us in here to make a decision. This isn't about who the voters trust to vote into office. This is about a position that you guys are creating that's going to be a long-term position, and you're saying, well, we want a people person. Well, of course we want a people person. That goes without saying. The clerk needs to be a people person. They're managing an entire staff. But again, you can make this change, and you can kick the can down the road with the no qualifications. And I know all of you, or most of you, don't think we need to have any qualifications, not even a clean driving abstract. That's fine. You can do it. You can ignore it here in the charter. You can ignore it in the code. You can ignore it. You can let the next council deal with it. But you're setting yourselves up for a potential situation that has actually occurred to 3 of us on this council, 2 of them in the majority, and I was not. And you're setting it up for a person who might just persecute council members. You're not considering that. You're not looking at it. You're just looking at the 4 years. So I will be the first to admit that this amendment that you've made in Margaret's bill, Miss Councilmember Willie's bill, is an improvement. It is definitely an improvement. I still don't think it's adequate. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Ms. Poindexter.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I know that labor laws are in place when it comes to like violence in the workplace, and we do have policies and procedures that the county council follows. So if I was physically threatened, believe me, that would be a lawsuit. So if any of the council members felt they were physically threatened before and didn't do anything about it, then that's on them. But labor laws are in place to protect us. And regardless, I do trust the people and their choice for the person that they vote for. The other thing is I do trust that, like we had said in many, many meetings concerning this issue, that most of us agreed that the qualifications can be set with the next council, and that would be more appropriate than us here at this council setting it. So I just wanted to make that clear, but I am supporting this. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Nishi.
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I call for the question?
Okay. There's been a call for the question by Mr. Onishi, second by Ms. Willie. Roll call vote, please, on call for the question. Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Ligon?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Nishi?
Aye.
Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Yoff?
Aye.
Chair Yoff, you have 8 ayes.
Okay, then Mr. Clerk will take a roll call vote on the main motion to approve Bill 253 as amended with the amended contents of Communication 876.3.
Ms. Ford?
No.
Mr. Ligon?
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha?
Aye.
Mr. Nishi?
Aye.
Ms. Poindexter?
Aye.
Ms. Willie?
Aye.
Mr. Yoshimoto?
Aye.
Chair Yoff?
Aye.
Chair Yoff, you have 7 ayes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Bill 253 has been approved. And I'll turn the chair back to Mr. Yoshimoto.